I'm Don Tess, better known as the Dawn of Beer.
And I'm M. Sauter, better known as Pints and Panels.
Welcome to episode 35 of the All About Beer podcast. Every 2 weeks, we talk with leading experts and take a deep dive into one topic in beer. This week on the show, we're going to talk about a relatively new beer style you may have seen, French Pilsner. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And if you're feeling generous, please visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. So, Em, have you had a French Pilsner?
I've had German, I've had Czech, Polish, Belgian, New Zealand, American, can't forget about America, USA. I will say I have never had a French Pilsner. What about you?
Non français? Non français?
Je
I
n'ai
just
pas
butchered.
something. Je suis la jeune vie from the Muzzy commercial.
Holy, wow, that was
impressive.
impressive.
That's for my 80s and 90s kids in America. They'll know what I'm talking about.
Um, I must confess I was ignorant of the style until early in April, and then I had one, and then all of a sudden, boom! I had like 5 or 6 of them, just
Huh.
like completely out of the blue. But prior to that, I was ignorant of the style myself. So today we're going to learn all about it. We've got a brewer from France who will tell us his perspective, and a brewer from America who makes a French Pilsner to talk about what it means for him. But first, if you would like to help support this show, please reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. Speaking of supporting the show, here is a word from our sponsors.
Estrella Galicia, where brewing excellence has been a family tradition since 1906. They're all about lager, rooted in the German brewing heritage. Maintaining their commitment to tradition, they brew exclusively in their original brewery in La Coruña, Spain. Each beer boasts its own distinctive recipe. No shortcuts, no compromises. They shun high-gravity tricks and avoid additives, even in their alcohol-free beers, and stick firmly to traditional methods. Their passion for beer sets them apart as they embrace and celebrate the art of brewing. At Estrella Galicia, they love beer above all things. Experience the difference and learn more on Instagram at Estrella Galicia, USA.
Todd DiMatteo started drinking and soon fell in love with craft beer in about 2001 when he moved to Asheville, North Carolina. When he left Asheville to return home to Atlanta in 2005, he met his wife, and she introduced him to the Brick Store Pub located in Decatur, Georgia. Todd started working there a few weeks later and really got into beer at that point. He worked at the Brick Store for over a decade, and toward the end of that time began homebrewing. Todd was always big into cooking, so brewing was an easy transition for him. He signed the lease on the building for Goodword in November of 2016 and opened the following November. It was named one of USA Today's top 10 brew pubs in 2020. In addition to the brew pub, Goodword also hosts 2 nice beer festivals. One in April called Little Beer, focusing on small beers, namely lagers and English beer, with brewers attending from around the country, and even one from Austria. Another festival is put on in early September, focusing on saison, mixed culture, and oysters called Les Bons. Les Bons also helps raise money and awareness for Oyster South, which directly impacts oyster farmers in the Southeast. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So Todd, you and I, about a week ago, were doing a blind tasting of some beers at your brewery, Goodword. And one of the beers you had us taste, blind, I'm going to say that again, was a French Pilsner from Green Bench Brewing. So you obviously picked that beer for a reason. Why do you like this style of beer, French Pilsner?
So, yeah, I actually picked that beer for a couple of reasons. One, obviously for the style, but two, we actually brewed a French Pils with Green Bench. I was looking back, it was a couple of years ago. It was in 2021, I think in November. So yeah, I was just curious, like what they had done, differently and kind of taste it. So it wasn't blind for me. I did pick that beer, but I thought it was super tasty. But I actually hadn't heard of French Pils until I read something that Chris Loring had wrote in Craft Beer and Brewing. And if there's anybody I'm gonna chase coattails, it's gonna be that guy because he makes outstanding beer, and he's introduced the U.S. to a lot of cool things from from Europe. But yeah, I read up on the style and I was like, this is super cool. And actually, John Hall had Chris and I on a podcast together. It was before we'd actually met. And during that podcast, Chris and I started talking about doing a collaboration, and it was before we had done decoctions or anything like this. And he was, on the podcast, kind of talking me through how I would do that in my brewing setup. And so, yeah, I was like, screw it, and then made the beer. And that first one, I'll be honest with you, I didn't love. And
Why not?
So, from reading what Chris had wrote about French Pills, and honestly, like I said, it was new to me. He's like, French malt, which I did use Vireman. I'm a Vireman hoe. I love Viremans. I can count on the reliability. I love the flavor and all that. So I did use Vireman, but we used Bloody Butcher corn from River Bend, which definitely has a sort of pronounced flavor, and Swiss Spalt. And that's kind of what it called for and what Chris had said. So built sort of like a German Pils, but with an adjunct, and it's dry hopped. So I used a new yeast strain from Omega. It was a theolized lager strain, and it was like brand new. I think it's called Lunar something or other. And we did the Saz mash hops to kind of help pronounce it, but it essentially took that Bloody Butcher and the sulfur that was being produced and the farminess of it all. And man, I hated that beer, I'll be honest with you. And we double brewed it. I remember reaching out to Omega, and I love Omega. They do great stuff, and I think they're pushing the envelope in a lot of cool ways. But I usually don't try something new when it comes to lager and double batching it, and also building an event around it. So we had Green Bench on the books for a beer dinner. So I had all these sort of compounding things, and I remember just being like, "Oh my god, this beer it has so much." I don't want to call it gamey, but this like farmy quality from, I'm assuming, the Bloody Butcher. And then it was just so sulfury. And when I reached out to Omega, they were like, turn off the jackets and let it free rise. And I'm like, I'm kind of already past that point, to be honest with you. So I started, after I'd moved it over, I'd hope it dissipate that flavor and aroma a little bit. And it did get a little bit better. But I remember hitting it with some CO2, trying to scrub it a little bit. And man, if Chris wasn't already coming with his brewer Dan, I might have, and I didn't have the beer Dan, I might have dropped that beer. It wasn't like horrible. I just really didn't like it. And it's one of those things, like, I want all of our beer to be quality, but like when I do a collab, I'm like, all right, now their name is attached to ours, and I owe them something. Like I owe them to make sure this beer is the best freaking beer I can make. And sometimes when you're doing something new, obviously there was unknowns. And I remember Chris and Dan trying the beer in the brewery. I was like, you guys fucking hate that beer, don't you? Like, oh no, it's good, it's good.
They were trying to be polite.
They were definitely trying to be polite. Some people really liked it that first round, but it was step mashed, and we did decoction on just the malt, and then I brought in the Bloody Butcher and more malt, and did a cereal mash, which went fine for that round. Now I tried to rebrew that beer, and I got away from the Bloody Butcher because I just didn't want that sort of, and I didn't use the same yeast. I used a different yeast strain, and with that same quality. And I tried a cereal mash again. Now the first time I did it, it was fine. But the second time I did this cereal mash, it did not go right, and I turned the corn into cornbread. It swelled up, and I ended up dropping the wort, and it was a terrible brew day. So I lost that. Anyway, did it again, and the second time I brewed it, it was about 1,000 times better. But I still wanted to kind of tweak things, and so the one we just released back in Little Beer a few weeks ago, I did the same sort of setup with step mashing it, and then I did a single decoction, and then I brought in the flake corn with some malt, and it still was it's always a little hard in our system to kind of move it over. We did a cereal mash on a rice beer, and I had to, it was a Korean style lager, and I had to use buckets to move it from the lauter tone because it compacted the piping so bad. So yeah, there's always some kind of pratfall when you try something new. But this last one, I'm pretty happy with it. It's tasty, and corn adds that sort of nice roundness to the beer.
So do you you sort of touched upon it, like you're using Bloody Butcher, which is an American variety of corn. Do you feel like, well, obviously you don't feel an obligation to use French ingredients, which is kind of which I think is where French Pilsner originated. Correct me if I'm wrong. So how do you think about, like, is it just that that's available and it's local and it's cool, so I want to try it,
So
and
yeah,
that's an acceptable deviation from France, or
yeah. So I go back to the adage that I've heard from brewers that are from the Czech Republic or wherever. It's like this this beer is Czech because I'm Czech, right?
oh,
So
okay,
I think there's always a little bit of a mashup, but yeah, Riverbend makes great stuff, and I think that you know I don't use them as much as I'd like to. Honestly, I think that their stuff for me, it's got a little more terroir, and I think in lagers, a lot of times it can stick out a little bit, and I think that their stuff works amazingly well and stays on. And I have had some lagers with their malt that are great, but for me, it's you always want to keep the lager beer kind of you know think of it in like an orchestration, and there's no like notes that are very sharp. So, but yeah, back to the ingredients. I don't know. Like I've used a lot of different base malts, and I use the Franco Belge for our Belgian style quad, but I just really like the reliability of Byronman's malt. But yeah, I think that first round I'd just been talking to Riverbend, and I wanted to kind of include them, but I feel like I don't know. I don't change too much when I'm trying to do something traditional. Like if it's a style I haven't brewed, like we made an All-Free not too long ago, I'll look at the BJCP and I try to get as close to the style guideline as possible. But with French style pills, it seemed like sort of this thing that I didn't owe a whole lot of tradition to be honest with you. So I was like, we could play with it a little bit. That first batch was obviously different with the Bloody Butcher, and then this lager strain that was obviously modified in the lab. But
right,
the last two iterations were a little closer to home, I guess.
okay.
I guess building on that, so when you release a French Pilsner, how do you educate people who buy it either in the tap room, or does it go in cans, or is it just on draft?
No, we do cans and draft both. I do think that education is huge, huge part of it. For our staff, we have a guy named Neil Callahan who I know that John and Don have met. I don't know if he's had a chance to meet him yet or not, but he's awesome. He worked at Cigar City for a while, but he's an advanced Cicerone and a BJCP judge. So we have him come up once a week and educate the staff. And I wish I could say that it was everybody shows up, but you know how it is. Coming on your day off or before you go to work, it's always a little bit of a challenge. But we have that component. But yeah, we use social media to try to talk about process and get people interested in it. That being said, like I feel there's a lot of times we create this sort of conversation that can be like a roadblock for like new drinkers, new consumers with like, Czech beer. When we get down to the, Tomavi Lesacs or the French style pills or, you name a thing that seems a little bit harder to understand to your average person who drinks, beer X and is just pops into our restaurant and brewery and it's like, well, I don't know what the hell it is because I can't pronounce the name and I don't know what the style is. So I feel like I'm always trying to be sensitive to that because I do want to honor tradition, but also don't want to, put my hand on the forehead of someone who's just trying to understand what it is we're advocating or talking about. So building that bridge is definitely one that I think we're continuing to try and do, but it's challenging for sure.
You're sort of you're making me think a bit here. Like there's a bunch of different styles of Pilsner, German Pilsner, Czech Pils, or any various types of light lager. And um, you just kind of said that you feel like you can use non-French ingredients. And that's fine. I'm not trying to bust your balls over that, but um, so then how do you define what makes it French? What makes a French Pilsner a French Pilsner?
Sure. Yeah.
Like sensorily or ingrediently or however you want
Yeah.
to define it.
Well, to go back to that, and I guess put up a little defense, I don't think anybody who's brewed one of these with corn or rice is bringing in corn or rice from France. So that's already a deviation. But I feel like with, how I view the beer is kind of like you would an Italian style pills. Like we use Estrella in ours, our Italian pills, which is grown on the coast of Italy. That's cool, part of the story. But, an Italian pills, from what I'm understanding, is like it's a dry hop Pilsner that's built like a German Pils, right? So I approach French Pils as built like a German Pilsner with an adjunct, and it's dry hop with French hops. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we have a little bit of license there, or at least I felt like I did.
Did you do the decoction mashing just because you like it to do decoction, or is that how they do it in France, where you were just like, this is your spin on it?
No, so again, like I'm using Chris as like
That guy
a
loves
springboard.
decoction, so
He
I
does
feel
too,
like
and we he does. But and we essentially decoct every one of our lagers, unless it's a Mexican lager or something like that's just step mashed and whatever. But my wife would joke and say that if it takes all day, that's something I would love to do, because I'm the main cook at the house and I'll braise things or slow cook or whatever. So yeah, I like the flavor of the decoction. I feel like there's, it adds an element, like a malt character, but I don't feel like it's the,
Wholeheartedly. I'm a fan.
yeah, but it's not like the silver bullet. Like it's the one thing that's going to make your beer better. There's I think it was Kevin Davey who said it on one of podcasts I listened to, and it's all the little steps along the way, all the little lager buzzwords that I feel like a lot of folks are doing that makes the final product really good. It's not just, oh, they do decoction, so their beer's going to be, fantastic or whatever. I mean, we had Will Comfort here and Mari, and one of the things that Will said that like kind of struck me was something that's so obvious, and I've been doing it since he left, and I've done it before, and I do it often, but dropping yeast every single day. And I was like, man, I just, it was a habit I didn't really have. And he's like, this is what separates their beer from, I mean, amongst, I'm sure, a multitude of other things. But, I was dropping yeast maybe 4 or 5 times all in. And I don't know, we've transferred a couple batches since then. I'm like, they're already tasting like even cleaner, And it may sound so obvious to so many people, but for me, I was like, holy shit. So every day we just come in and drop the cone. So
What do you mean by that? Drop the yeast?
Oh, so like, yeast, as it kind of does its thing, and it's, dead or kaput as far as energy goes, it drops to the bottom of the cone. Yep. And so there's nothing good that it's going to do there. So you either, collect it and repitch it, or you just open the valve up with a little hose and let it go to the drain, because it's only going to add, a little flavor to that. And I guess I was like not considering how much flavor it would add to a beer. Again, we've been doing it, just not to the level that Will had suggested, and I was like, holy shit. And such a simple thing, I feel like is at least making me think that our beer is going to be better than it has been. So I'm always on that hunt of like, how can I make better beer? I think everybody probably is.
Yeah, I like that. That's why we like you.
So final question, how has the customer response been to the French Pilsner? I mean, your beers are delicious, so I'm assuming they're enjoying it, but I was just curious if you had gotten any feedback from the beer.
Yeah, so I honestly, like, going back to that thing where, we're doing a collab, like it means so much to us. Like I feel like there was a time we're in our 7th year, right? Or we'll be 7 in November. So, in the U.S. scheme of things, that's a decent time. It's funny, when I was in Germany, it was like the breweries are so old. It's like, holy shit, my life is blown
700 years
away.
old.
Yeah, they're like, you guys are like, yeah, we're 5 or whatever. That's adorable. But we're in the burbs of Atlanta, so we're like 18 miles from the city. So, and you guys who came from the airport know it's a good 45 minutes. So I felt like I was noisier earlier on, meaning like I was sending breweries beer, like, hey, send a message, like literally I'd cold call you, like, hey, I'm a big fan of your stuff, and did a lot of that. And it's a humbling sort of thing because I'm putting myself out there for breweries that I like admire. And it did develop relationships, and we got to go to some events, but in the first 3 or 4 years. And then I was just like, what am I trying to prove by, like, sure, there's so many fucking breweries, and a lot of people are making really great beer. So I stopped doing that as much, and just realized that the relationships I really want to keep, and they're truly authentic, and we're actually good friends, and it's not just like for fucking Instagram. Or I always say I hate like can culture, where it's like, oh, we're dropping 6 new cans this weekend. It's like, who fucking gives a fuck? Like, that's part of the problem here, I feel like. So I'm not having brewery X on our label is more than just like, hey, we got 2 new followers or whatever the fuck. It's like, I'm honored to have you trust me with your beer. So those first 2 beers, I was like, and I'm 45. Chris, I think he's like 36 years old, but I look up to Chris. I don't think age matters in that way, but it's a humbling sort of thing to be like, I'm in my 40s, and this guy's, a junior as far as age goes, but he's so accomplished. And like the first 2 rounds, or first 1 round of this beer fucking sucked. And I was like, man, I fucking let this guy down, or his brewery down a little bit. So making it better was not just about my own ego. It was to show, my friend and other brewers are like, I take it seriously when we make a beer together. And so to go back to the question, I feel like people came away being like, this is the best beer, we had from Good Word this weekend. So it was cool to hear that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Awesome. Todd, can you share your social media handles so people can follow what Good Word is up to?
We have way too many social media handles, but our main Instagram is at Good Word Brewing, and then we've got one for our events, Little Beer Fest, which is at little_beer_fest, and then our Saison Oyster Fest is called Le Bon, Lebon.
Awesome. It's a kind of a French name for that. So
Yeah.
there we go. Awesome. Thank you, Todd. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you guys so much.
Cheers.
The origins of Estrella Galicia date back to 1906, the date on which Jose Maria Rivera Corral founded the first beer and ice factory in La Coruña after his return from immigration to Mexico. Estrella Galicia recalled its business in the city of Veracruz, advocating for a product that at the time had very limited consumption, but that ended up becoming a part of the habits of all Spaniards. In the 1920s, the mechanization process of the first factory began with the help of Mr. Ramon Rivera, son of the founder, who was one of the first Spaniards to obtain the title of master brewer. The third generation of the Rivera family in 1970 decided to build a new factory on the industrial estate of Algreda in the same city, fully equipped with the latest advances in the brewing sector. Experience the difference and know more about Estrella Galicia by visiting them on Instagram at Estrella Galicia, USA.
La Malpardon was established in 2018 in Montpellier, southern France, named after the Montpellier snake found throughout the Mediterranean area. After 15 years in Paris, Remy, the founder, returned to his hometown to launch a brewery with a unique vision, crafting beers inspired by traditional styles using the most local and natural ingredients. This commitment leads them to exclusively use local, organic, artisanal malts, raw cereals, French or organic Catalonian hops, local and unprocessed fruits, foraged spices, herbs, and plants. Their primary focus is on rustic ale styles such as Saison, Grisette, and Bière de Garde, brewed with house yeast blends. They also brew different grape ales, mixing winemakers and brewing techniques, but also wild ales driven by a passion for beer and brewing, occasionally craft IPAs, strong dark beers, and twisted lagers, all while maintaining an unwavering commitment to ethical practices. With Nicholas Wasser, the head brewer, and a small team, they produce around 1,000 hectoliters per year, maintain a cellar with 100 barrels, puncheons, and foeders, and export beers to Belgium, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Canada, Japan, Korea, and China. Welcome to the show, Remy.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. So you live in France, obviously. So what is French Pilsner?
French Pilsner, is this a thing? I don't know. There is some.
Is this a,
We hope it's a thing.
we better hope it's a
Yeah,
thing.
I don't know because France has very few traditional styles, French styles outside the northern style. There is Bière de Garde, Saison, and Grisette are from the French part of Belgium, but Bière de Mars is not really produced anymore or well known. And most of the industrial beers made by the big breweries are Euro lager, industrial lager. So it's not really pilsners, and it's always been labeled for people as blonde beer, and it's in the 10 and with the renewal of French craft beer, even from the classic artisan styles, was mainly ales, pale ale, or just blonde beer, but mostly hop fermented beers. And some are making pilsners, but wasn't really sold as a fancy, nice beer. And we don't really have in France a really big German culture as a beer culture as maybe the Italian have, or the Germans, for sure. So nowadays there is more and more French craft breweries that are exploring the styles. For example, this weekend it was the Lyon Beer Festival, and one of the breweries was supposed to showcase some lagers, and if there is like I've done the math, and it's there was 30% of IPAs, and for the lager styles, it was the second after sour stouts, and then it was lagers. It was almost 10% of the beer that were labeled as lagers. So a lot of twisted lagers with smoked or Indian pale lagers or stuff like that. But some pilsners and brewers are starting to explore the difference between Bohemian lagers, Italian pilsners, or German pils, Czech lagers, a lot of stuff like that. So, but mainly, I think there are a lot of us are still learning and trying to make beer that could be sold easily on the craft market. So you have to have a twist like we did last year. We had a smoked lager, lightly smoked lager, but with hay. So it has to have some twist to be easily sold on the craft market if you don't want to make really cheap beer, because still it is labeled as cheap beer, and people don't really even craft beer drinkers still have a bad image of lager.
That's
And
that's interesting.
yeah, And
For-
the price is quite expensive to make, and you don't make a lot of value on this kind of beer because it has to be sold, and they are really around 2.5 euros for per liter, and it's really not a lot these days.
So
And
so this like French Pilsner thing is really almost, it sounds kind of like Americans are taking French ingredients and making a French Pilsner, and the French, you, are
yeah,
like, what is this?
yeah, but I don't know. We try. There is some brewers like Vif that in France that is making some good lagers as well. Pleine Lune, 90 BPM, for as it's like in the festival. I told you it's like maybe 5 to 10% of their production. Some are making Pleine Lune and is making a lot of them, but it's starting to be for French a big small brewery. And Vif is focused on lagers as well, almost only, but all the craft brewer are making a twist on classic styles, but not not a lot have tried to think about making a special French style. We tried in France. We tried to do some French grey pears because it makes sense. But we're still trying to, at the brewery at La Malle-Poland, we're still trying to define something that could be our thing or our take on the Pilsner, maybe. But it has to be different. The Italian Pilsner, for example, is still really quite almost the same thing as the German Pilsner, but the little twist for the dry hop on the Italian Pilsner is really good. And it's Italian because they did it first. But what could be French? So still we don't really know. Maybe the French hops or some other stuff, but in my opinion, there is not really a French, not much reflection about the Frenchness of lagers.
Oh, so can you maybe describe? You mentioned French hops. Can you maybe describe
Yeah,
what
the French
is?
shops. Yeah, French shops are mainly produced in Alsace,
Yes.
which is the most historic and biggest producer of hops in France. They have noble hops like Strisselspalt, that is kind of spalter-like, and that was used in a lot of lagers, even in the US and in Europe. We use them. We use it a lot, and they also have some more aromatic hops that are they developed maybe 6 or 10 to in the past 10 years they made them I think 5 new breeds: Aramis, Triskel, Mistral, Barbe Rouge, and Elixir. And it's not quite as it's not really citrusy or really stone fruits. Or that's really maybe the elixir is the most fruity hop.
Yeah.
Barbe Rouge is a little bit on red fruits, and the others are more herbal or maybe a bit peppery or and things like that. So it doesn't really have a big. I don't think it would make something a big difference compared to other hops. But still, we do at the brewery. We only use French hops, so I don't have a lot of opinion on other other breeds from other countries. So I like my French hops, but and
What's your favorite?
sometimes
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite? And
Elixir
why?
is really fruity, and Strisselspalt Strisselspalt I like a lot because it's really low on acid alpha. Sometimes it's like just 2%.
Oh, wow.
It's a really nice hop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Americans who are listening, more Strisselspalt. Thank you.
Remy, you just talked about hops, but can you maybe talk about is there anything special about French malt, and might it be a little bit different from malts
yeah.
from other European
So
countries?
French malts, they are. We are working only with at the brewery. We're only working with artisan maltsters. So, for example, we are big fans of the Schlenkerla's beer, the smoked beers from Germany.
Who isn't?
Schlenkerla or Brasserie. I don't speak German, so I don't say.
No, yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, you
so.
know, the really really heavy on the smoke, and all their beers are smoked, and
Yes.
we like them a lot, and we wanted to make like their Marzen Roche beer, make the kind of the same, but we didn't want to add some funny twist or something like that. But we didn't know what to add to have a point of view. And then I was asking one of my masters to what they have in stock, and he told me that he made some smoked malts, but with vine wood smoked with.
Oh, I see.
So it was that was the idea to make this one that we poured first at the festival this weekend, and it was really good because really heavy on the wood. So sometimes you can work with different malts or specialty malts from your local maltster. So that's the funny part, and try to put some ingredients. Maybe there could be something about lagers, barrel-aged lagers, maybe. So that could be a thing, but it's quite expensive to make and quite tricky. I think there is some. I know there are a lot of breweries are now making this in the US, but in France it's not really common to have yet to have some lagers, barrel-aged lagers in fodders or stuff like that. It's quite tricky to do, but that could be a thing. But we are hosting a little party in June, and Burning Sky, they are coming to the breweries. I think they made one barrel-aged lagers once, so I will ask them how it came out. But still, we haven't tried yet. But that could be that. This is.
I was gonna say, what are you waiting for? That sounds like totally in your wheelhouse to do a barrel-aged lager.
Yeah, but when you're doing mixed fermentation on the in the same place.
True. That is a very good point. Thank you for reminding. Yes. That's a bad idea. Never mind.
But we so maybe buying some big new clean fodder and to have separate rooms for it. But it could be a thing. But that's quite an investment for just one try.
That is a good point. So Remy, when you hear the word Pilsner, what does that mean to you? So like when you hear all these Americans making French Pilsners, and that's like, what is that? But yeah, because my opinion of Pilsner is that it's usually localish ingredients and then but an attention to hops. So would a French Pilsner to you be local ingredients or base malt and then attention to French hops, or do you take it as a different interpretation?
Yeah, maybe using French hops is definitely an option because it has their taste may make a variation on outside of SAS, or it could be good to try some more with the French hops. Maybe, in fact, yes, mixing something between Italian Pilsner, but with more aromatic French hops, using some dry hopping could be a good idea. And the base malt, I don't know. I don't know because there's not really a lot of French specialty on malts. Maybe it's more the terroir, but the terroir is in beer. You know, for me, the lagers are good quality malts, a lot of time, a lot of real lagering. It makes I think it makes a real difference. And use of hops, but not too fruity. I think it's maybe the Aramis or Triskel breeds could be good to use if you want to make something French really. Maybe a little touch of Barbe Rouge for the red notes. That could be good to pair with the yeast. And I don't know. For the malts, I don't really have an opinion on it because it may be a bit more drier than the German or the Italian one. Something.
Okay. Well, so you mentioned it drier. Certainly in America, when people are making French Pilsner, they always use an adjunct. So, do you think that's important to make it drier? And then does that maybe showcase the French hops better? Question mark.
Yeah. I think maybe more to have something drier. It's if there is something French to add in the Pilsner, it will be for American people. It should be the hops definitely, but drier you will taste more than with the more mouth-forward beer. Yeah, it's definitely. But do you say adjunct? Like, what kind of adjunct do they add?
I think some are using corn and some are using rice.
Oh, okay.
Which
But it's mainly American. We tried once to make corn beer, corn lager with a corn lager, and we label it as American lager. So, but it was with a French local from my region, south of France, from a kind of a special French breed of corn, white corn.
Oh,
I like
And
that.
but we wanted to make an American lager, but with French white corn.
oh,
Oh.
that sounds. So you essentially made it's like a Franco-American
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
lager.
And I mean, is rice a thing in France?
yeah.
I
As
know.
well, we do have in Camargue. They do a lot of rice. We already did once as well with red wine, red rice.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then in America, at least the brewers I talk to making French Pilsner, they always say it's important to mash by decoction. Do you
Yeah,
think
I
there's
agree
a
on
good
that.
reason for that? Oh, you do agree. Okay. Why do you think that's
Yeah.
important?
Yeah, because if you were making adjuncts, it's quite better to do it as well because we have we did on our brewery we trying to make some we don't have a German brewery, but we can make step mashing and all. And when we do some lagers, we have tried without the decoction and with a kind of decoction on that we try to arranged on our brewery set. Kind of, it's a fun part for the brewers because you have to think about you to be a bit innovative for the process. And even if customers don't really care about decoction, they care about double dry hop, but they don't care about double decoction. But in the end, I think you can sense a bit the difference. But it's like maybe 1% of the drinkers that will notice it. But still, you're happy when you're a brewer to feel the difference.
Yes.
Yeah, I will let you know
I'm the 1%.
yeah, no, I'll let you know in America, decoction is becoming quite hip and cool.
Yeah.
So I think that we're getting there.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that I am nothing if not hip, Em. So
Don, you are not hip.
Yeah. Yeah, in France, most of the people still confuse hops with malt. So, oh, is this hop bags? No. It's
I mean,
so you're crushing the hops? Yeah, no. So still there is a lot of education to make on beer in general. Even if for example, Lyon Beer Festival, there were like 10,000 people coming to the festival. So it's getting more and more public, all the different beers, different style and different beers. But the lagers, it's still is labeled in blonde and making a difference between Helles or German Pils or I don't know, Kolsch maybe. It's really quite impossible to make friends. When I went to Italy to promote my beers, we had a little tour in neighbors, Milan and Roma, and I was talking to some guy in Roma. He told me, do you know the brewery Mukeler, not Mikeler, Mukeler? They made the Helles. It's a game changer. Well, I said, what? There is a game on the Helles in Italy. I didn't know that could be a thing, but in France, there's almost nobody knows what Helles is. So,
well, I guess that's a good final question. So, what is your hope for the future of French lagers? Do you hope that more people get educated about different, like German styles, or do you wish people in France made more lagers, or what would you love to see in the French craft lager scene?
It's strictly on the business point. It should be people that could notice what the difference between good and bad industrial lagers, and maybe focus a little bit more on the details and consider this beer as a more valuable beer and not be. And this is the point, in my opinion, that people to get the difference between the different styles and appreciate a bit more simplicity and complexity and get to pay more attention to the details in the beers, not have only the in-your-face beer like raspberry and double dry hopping and 10 degrees, 14 degrees. So maybe to have something more on the details and the well-made, make the difference between a well-made beer and a little bit botched beer,
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think the lager could be a good marker, since it's a style that doesn't when you make the difference between a good one and a bad one, not that easily for the majority of people.
Yeah. Remy, thank you for your time. If people want to follow you or your brewery, can you tell us your website or social media handles, please?
Yeah, we are on Instagram and on Facebook. For foreigners, I think Instagram is better because you will have a lot of pictures and not too much French. And yes, you can find us on our Instagram. You can see all the new beers and all the our program and stuff like that. So it's
What is the, sorry to
La
interrupt.
Malle, La
Yeah,
Malle
yeah.
Polon.
I was just about to ask. Okay,
Brasserie La Malle Polon.
thank you.
And
Excellent.
you will find it easily.
Wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of
thank you.
course. Thank you for
Merci.
talking. Yeah, I am not going to say it. Merci. There we go. I can't speak French. I'm
De
sorry.
rien. Avec plaisir.
Santé.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Remy.
Bye.
So, M, what's your big takeaway from this episode?
That French Pilsners are American.
Yes.
It reaffirmed, and I'm not laughing because it's wrong or whatever. I'm laughing because it reinforces like American craft tradition, and but in a way that we take traditional ingredients, namely traditional and new French hops, and create these new lager styles. It also shows to me that lagers are popular and cool now in America, which it's about time. Sorry.
Yeah, I
What
do
about
think
you,
that
John?
I think that is kind of the history of beer, though, right? Like even the concept of Pilsner
Yes.
was originally just a beer from Pilsen, and people in Pilsen at the time wouldn't have called their beer Pilsner; they just called it beer. And people from outside Pilsner called it Pilsner, right? And so,
well, then it becomes where do you make it? So,
yes.
They take German ingredients and create the German Pilsner. They take. I mean, and that's what I think of when I think of Pilsner is like New Zealand Pilsners are lagers with New Zealand hops. The only one that kind of falls outside that fray is Italian, which is just an extra dry hop German Pilsner. In my mind, I'm sure we'll get letters about that. But I just find it's really cool how American lager brewing, and then also talking to Remy, is French craft brewing feels like it's kind of behind, and I don't mean this in behind a little, like it's not behind, but like back in time. Like it reminds me of like 2015 America, 2014 America, where it's popular, but these are the styles that are popular. And that, France still is brewing these I mean, he said it himself, you've got to brew these unique, weird kind of beers to stand out, and lagers are industrial. And that's how America, by the way. Yeah, I mean, they're making a regular like Schlenkerla clone, which is with vine smoked malt. Like, come on, American brewers who are listening, that you should make that.
Yeah, like California, right?
Yeah, hello, it's right there. But it's just really fascinating how craft is different in different places, and what beer means to other people in different places, and how we use ingredients. It was just I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and there's actually, since you mentioned that, there's actually a lot to like. If people would visit allaboutbeer.com, they can read articles and things there. And please also follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And if you're feeling generous, please visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer to support this show and others. And if you have questions or want to correct M on what Italian Pilsner means, then please send an email.
Let me know.
Please send an email to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting this show through advertising. M, how can people reach out to you and tell you what an Italian Pilsner is?
If you want to tell me what an Italian Pilsner is, I am at Pints and Panels across all social media, and my website, where I have info about Italian Pilsners. If you want to learn about Italian Pilsners, drop me. You can look at my website, www.pintsandpanels.com. Don, what about you? How can people reach out to you and tell you about malt protein?
I am at the Dawn of Beer on X, Threads, and Instagram, and people can drop me an email about malt proteins at don@thedawnofbeer.com. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends, post about it on social media, and like and subscribe to the show. Please help us spread the word of good beer and French Pilsner. And here's a final word from our sponsors.
The story of Estrella Galicia continues. In the 1990s, the fourth generation of the Rivera family took over, embarking on an unstoppable journey of diversification in products and services, coupled with the expansion of national and international markets that continue to this day. At the beginning of the 2000s, a pioneering project was launched to reactivate hop cultivation in Galicia. And in 2012, the fifth generation joined the company, promoting their beers to more than 30 international countries. In 2019, they opened Mega, not only a museum, but a space dedicated to celebrating the culture of beer. Estrella Galicia's history, marked by innovation and global presence, continues to evolve, capturing the essence of a legacy that transcends borders. Learn more about Estrella Galicia on Instagram by visiting Estrella Galicia USA.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the newsletter and social media. Cheers.
Drink from French Pilsners.
En français.
Oh, sorry, that was awful.